Hi, I'm Caden, here with my brother,
Cal,
and you're watching Eating W's.
eat the W.
That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W.
On today's episode of Eating W's, we have our NFL Week 8 recap. But before we get to those games, we have a ton of trade news because we are recording today, Tuesday, November 1st at 8 p.m. because it is officially after the NFL trade deadline. So lots of trades this episode, but then there will be no more for the rest of the season. So we'll knock them all out right now, real quick. Starting with the Bears, who trade outside linebacker Robert Quinn to the Eagles in exchange for a fourth. And then the news broke to Roquan Smith, the Bears middle linebacker, at a press conference. He was very sad, emotional, visually choked up by it. So to make up to him, the Bears organization did him a huge favor and also traded him. A few days later, they traded Roquan Smith to the Ravens for a second and fifth round pick. So really cleaning house there in Chicago, but they are not done yet. They have another deal coming up here soon that we'll talk about. The Giants traded second-year wide receiver Kadarius Toney to the Kansas City Chiefs. So a good pickup there, another weapon for Patrick Mahomes. He's kind of like the short route Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Doesn't quite have the deep threat of Tyreek Hill,
but stay healthy though.
But he's got that shiftiness, and yes, his big thing is always staying healthy. And then a fun one here, Calvin Ridley was traded from the Falcons to the Jaguars. He, of course, will not be able to play still, but he will be reinstated next season as a Jaguar instead of a Falcon. And the picks there, I'm not going to go into the picks on each one, but of course, all of these, unless mentioned, had some picks in return. And it's pretty funny because the picks for Calvin Ridley was a bunch of conditional messes, just depending on if he gets reinstated, if he plays, if he gets all the way to if he gets extended, it becomes a second round pick.
And you know, one fascinating tidbit about that trade, the Calvin Ridley, he's suspended for betting on NFL games. Well, the game that he bet on, that he got caught, he bet the Falcons to beat the Jaguars. And now he's on the Jaguars.
Look at him go. I'm surprised the Jaguars accepted him. They didn't say screw you for picking against us. Speaking of the Bears, who we were just talking about a little bit ago, the Steelers traded wide receiver Chase Claypool to the Bears, and in return got a second round pick, which I don't really know if Chase Claypool is worth that, but Justin Fields does like his big-bodied wide receivers, and I really think that connection could end up being pretty good, so maybe that second will be more than worth it as the season goes on. The Dolphins get Bradley Chubb from the Denver Broncos, and then the Broncos get Chase Edmonds plus picks from the Dolphins in return. But then the Dolphins go out and replace Chase Edmonds with Jeff Wilson Jr. from the 49ers. So overall, the Dolphins swap running backs and get Bradley Chubb. So that's a pretty good move for them. I think that'll go well for them in the long run. And then Nyheim Hines is sent to the Bills in exchange for Zach Moss and some other picks from the Bills. Rashard Fenton was traded to the Falcons from the Chiefs. And then finally, far and away, the most exciting news from the NFL trade deadline, the Lions trade stud tight end TJ Hockenson. Iowa boy, went to the University of Iowa, tight end TJ Hockenson, as well as a 2023 and 2024 fourth round pick. And in exchange, all the Vikings had to give up was a 2023 second and a 2024 third round pick. So we're getting TJ Hockenson for only like 2 rounds of change. Because I mean, if you look at it, the Vikings are likely going to be pretty low in the draft. And then the Lions are probably going to have a pretty high pick. So when you look at a low fourth or a high fourth round pick for a low towards the end of the round second round pick, there's not much change there. And then the next year really isn't only a 1 round difference. So you get a tight end like TJ Hockenson for only a 2 round trade movement in the draft. I'll take that.
Yeah, it's similar to the trade they had during the draft this past year. In terms of round movement, it's tough, but it is a good move. As non-biased as I'm trying to be, unfortunately a very good move for the Vikings, who just lost Irv Smith for a few weeks due to a high ankle sprain. So, it seems to be that they're realizing their window is open and they're really going for it.
And the Vikings have been running a ton of 2 and 3 tight end sets recently. So once we get Irv Smith back, we'll have TJ Hawkinson as our number 1. Irv Smith as a little bit of a quicker, deep threat vertical tight end. And then we'll still have Johnny Munt at that tight end 3 role as a blocking tight end. I love that setup. I am really excited for that in the future once Irv Smith is back. But I'm pretty damn excited for Hawkinson and Johnny Munt right now. So, man, that is just an awesome trade. I am
You're going to get a
ecstatic.
Hawkinson jersey?
I might get a Hawkinson jersey. That'd be pretty sweet. I think that's a good idea. I think I will do that. So that is some of the trades, some of the biggest trades from the NFL trade deadline. There's, of course, a ton more. Spot Track is a good place to look. ESPN, NFL.com. They all have articles. Lots of other smaller trades happen, but these were some of the biggest names to be traded. And now we will jump into our game recaps. Almost lost it there. Starting with the Thursday night game of the Ravens heading to Tampa Bay to take on the Bucs and picking up an away win by the score of 27-22. The Bucs played much better than they have recently. Much, much better. But they were still not able to take out a pretty stacked Ravens roster that got even better after this trade deadline, picking up a monster like Roquan Smith on the defensive side of the ball. But as for this game, they were able to pull out a close game against a resurging team.
Yeah, Brady almost was able to bring them back. He actually started out 7-0. He had a really good drive to start the game and just was never able to replicate it. And then towards the end there, they were able to put it together for a little bit, but it was just too little too late.
Yep. Moving on, next we had the London game in the first game on the Sunday slate of games, which featured the Broncos heading to the Jaguars, but it was in London and picking up a win by the score of 21-17. And Russell Wilson finally looked like he could actually run that offense. It still wasn't pretty by any means. It didn't look like a well-oiled machine, but it looked like a working machine, which is something that the Broncos have not looked like since week 1, or even before week 1, because we never even got to see him in the preseason. But I really thought the Jags would win this. Their undefeated streak in London is now ended. But I am kind of happy to see Russell Wilson playing better because I was starting to feel bad for that poor guy.
It all has to do with those high knees.
The
high knees
on the plane,
you gotta have that work ethic, and it's just finally starting to pay off for him. We'll see if they can turn it around.
Yep. Broncos country, let's ride. It's finally working. Next up, we got a NFC South divisional matchup. It was a hell of a game. We had the Panthers head to Atlanta to take on the Falcons, and the Falcons barely eke out a win in overtime by a score of 37-34. This game had an absolutely insane ending with a Hail Mary touchdown from PJ Walker to DJ Moore, which ended with DJ Moore taking his helmet off and throwing it down, which gave him an excessive celebration penalty, which then caused Eddie Pinheiro, the Carolina Panthers kicker, to miss the extra point that would have won the game and instead sent it into overtime, where Eddie Pinheiro then missed another field goal that could have won the game, which opened up the window for the Falcons to drive down the field and Younghoe Koo to hit the game-winning field goal. Now, you have to feel bad for the Panthers. They had a chance to take first place in that wide-open NFC South division. They played their heart out. If you look at all of the things they're missing with their head coach being fired, third-string quarterback, lost the best running back to a trade. The fact that they were even in this game, even against a subpar team like the Falcons in Atlanta, was impressive. And then to just end it in heartbreaking fashion with the double miss by the kicker. Rough for the Panthers. And
they showed him before the game during pregame warmups. He was taking selfies and not practicing his kicks. So, that's why he missed.
Yeah, those selfies were worth it. Now he'll have that memory forever. Don't worry.
No, this game was wild. It really was. The whole Hail Mary and then the way that the Panthers tried to out Falcons the Falcons, and the Falcons kind of putting it together and not choking it away. Like it was wild. It was a good game to watch.
DJ Moore's finally really coming out of his shell. I want to say he had about 150 and 1 or 2 touchdowns. So good to see him playing better this season. Next up, we got our 2 favorite teams in a row, starting off with the Cardinals heading to Minnesota to take on the Vikings, and the Vikings pick up a win by the score of 34-26. Now, I realized something. We've kind of been making fun of the Cardinals a lot this season, but they are truly a different team with DeAndre Hopkins. Even on the defensive side of the ball, they looked more solid just because they were on the field less. They had a little bit more momentum in times because DeAndre Hopkins just makes that much of a difference on the offense. Rondell Moore even had a much bigger game because Hopkins was able to take that cornerback 1 and double team looks from that defense. So overall, I am actually extremely happy with this win. I saw a lot of places that we could definitely clean some things up, and we had some opportunities to put this game away in the 4th quarter, and we didn't put it away, but we ended up picking up the win nevertheless. So everything gets swept under the rug when a team wins. You gotta realize that in the NFL. But overall, it was a hell of a game by the Cardinals. It was good to see them kind of come back around, and it's really good to see Hopkins being able to come out of the darkness and still play well.
Yeah, having a star wide receiver really makes a difference.
It definitely does.
It definitely does. And just ask a few teams that are missing their star wide receiver this year. But, back to the Cardinals, I thought they played a hell of a game. I thought they were going to get blown out of this game. It was opening weekend for Modern Warfare 2. So obviously that's what Kyler Murray was doing. I don't blame him. That's what I would be doing too if I had.
He pulled an all-nighter before that.
Oh yeah, so
he brought the Xbox to the hotel room.
Definitely brought the mobile Xbox.
Exactly.
But he had a good game too. He had a couple of bad interceptions, but it just seems to be that kind of season for the Vikings. Just where things are going their way, their window is open, and they had that muff punt that really kind of changed the tide of the game right there at the end, and just seems to be the Vikings season this year.
Another mark in that win column, gotta love it. I really think this was probably our overall best game of the season. If you look at it quarter by quarter, 1 through 4, overall, I think it was our most solid game across the board.
You always match winning seasons with the Eagles.
Oh yeah, we do. 2017 was the last one.
Yeah.
So next up, we got the Packers heading to the Buffalo Bills and losing by a score of 27-17.
And it was probably our most solid game. I was a little surprised that they were able to stay within 10 points. I thought there was going to be an 80-point blowout. I had the Bills as my lock, and that obviously did come to fruition with the 10-point win. But I thought it was our most complete game, and that's terrible to say for a loss because I hate saying that, oh, it was a good loss, or you can try to find a silver lining. But Rodgers went over 200 yards. We ran the ball with Aaron Jones so consistently that we weren't even passing it when we were 17 down. We were still running it, and it was working. And we just kind of ran out of time there. We should shut them down in the second half. I don't know if the Bills gave up but holding them on only 3 points in the second half, we won that second half. So there's that. It's just been that kind of bad season for the Packers.
Yeah, look at that. Both of our teams playing better on the same week.
There we go. Yeah. Yours transpired to a win.
I had some meetings and stuff, so I barely got to see any of this game. That's why I let Callan go first, as I don't have much to say about it, except for Vikings got a 3-game lead in that division. 3 games, baby. That's just enough cushion for us to choke away by week 17. So let's go Minnesota.
That's true. We're only halfway through the season.
I can't wait to watch it happen and watch everything burn right before my eyes. And then to finish it up quick with the Monday Night Football game, we had the Cincinnati Bengals heading to Cleveland to take on the Browns and getting absolutely stomped by the Browns by a score of 32-13. The Bengals just really looked lost without Jamar Chase. Mm-hmm. You think they would use the borderline elite running back they have, Joe Mixon, a little more, but no, they kept going with the pass game, and it just kept not working. The only good-looking pass play was a toss-up to T. Higgins where he totally mossed the corner and backed into the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
But aside from that, the Bengals did almost nothing, and the Browns just ran all over them. The running game opened up the passing game for the Browns. Jacoby Brissett looked really consistent. He looked really just good overall. So Browns just picked up an easy win at home.
Yeah, I was really wrong about the Bengals. They seem to be really just kind of a hit and miss team because they're scored almost 40 last week, and now they could barely score 13 this week. So, it just seems to be that Jamar Chase really makes that much of a difference. Again, missing your star wide receiver really makes a difference. So
Who'd have thought?
Who would have thought? But the Browns really get that when they get that running game going, they're really hard to beat. And Jacoby Brissett, even though he's still probably going to be benched after Week 11,
Poor guy.
Still just
He's
taking
keeping
it
him
all
in
in
the playoff
stride.
race. Yeah,
He's taking it all in stride. So
it is
he's
hilarious.
enjoying his moment in the sun right now. And hey, he got it last night.
And he looked efficient. That's the word I was stumbling around. He looked very efficient.
He did.
So that was our NFL Week 8 recap and some trade deadline updates. Thank you all so much for watching, and make sure to tune in tomorrow for our NFL Week 9 predictions. But until then, don't forget
To eat the W.